Hi everyone, welcome to episode 7 of Taking Care of Business, the Dubai Real Estate Podcast. I'm here with Paul Kelly.
Job role?
COO. Am I there?
Oh, don't say that. No, Carl won't like that.
Oh, you're operations director.
Yeah, Carl's the CEO.
Okay, you can be COO today. So we're here today to talk about something we touched on last week, which was property trends based on prices in Dubai. I think it's fair to say in the last 8 years, prices have slowly declined to the point of where they are at the cheapest I've not ever seen them, because I think in 2008, 2009, I've seen some really
but they're
cheap
not far
deals.
off, you know.
No, they're not. I mean, a Springs 4M, at the lowest point that I've ever seen, we traded one. We sold a property at 900,000, and I think now the cheapest you get is about 1.1 million. I think, is that right?
Yeah, 1.1, but that's maybe what we're going to come on to. I think a couple of occasions it did get close to 1.
Yeah.
So, but maybe now.
So not that as cheap as I saw.
Hey?
Not as cheap as I saw.
No.
There you go then.
Not too far.
I win then. So today we're going to talk about property prices. We're going to talk about why people are buying, and a little bit about the transactional value in terms of what people's mindset are. So I think the first thing I want to talk about, really, if you are listening to this, is the three types of mindsets really that you have. You have the tenant mindset, which is, if you read on the Arabian Business or anything, any online portal, they constantly just saying the price are going to drop, they're going to continue to drop, and ha emojis, and they're like, well, you watched when they're at 100,000 dirhams a house, and tenants are willing prices down effectively. And then you've got the property owners like me and you.
Just to backtrack on that, that's the tenants with laughing emojis, not Arabian Business.
No, yeah, of course, yeah, the tenants saying, you know, I watch them, and it's like anyone that's putting these type of context to their quotes, they're really willing the prices down so they can get in the market. That's the main reason. Then you've got your landlords. What would you say a landlord's mindset is when they're reading the news?
I think a landlord's mindset at the moment is just sit tight and ride it out, unless they've got a pressing need to sell their property to release some equity for one reason or another. It's a rough ride, it's a bumpy ride. Even in the last 12 to 18 months, rents have dropped considerably, really, 15, 20, even 25% maybe, depending on the area. So a lot of the times landlords are coming to renew contracts or find a new tenant in the market, whereas maybe they rented it 2 years ago. The tenants left for one reason or another, now they're trying to rent it again. Yeah. A lot of landlords are getting a bit of a shock in terms of... Well,
I'm a live example. I've got a Jumeirah Golf Estates 3-bed that I've rented for the last 4 years, and it's on the golf course, a beautiful villa called Redwood, sorry, yeah. So Redwood.
You've got too many, you don't know where they all are.
So this one is Redwood, and I think I was renting at one point 187,500. The tenant's just left, and when the tenant left, he actually made me a decreased offer. He said, look, I'm not paying 187,500, I'm going to pay 160, and I just laughed and said, no, you're right, I'm not dropping 20 grand. And I think the property was actually vacant for 2 months once he left, trying to find a new tenant, and we've just rented it for 170. But in hindsight, I've probably lost 2 months rent. Then if you break out the profit and loss in the account, it would have been better just accepting the lower offer. But I think that's most landlords at the moment. I think you've got to accept Dubai is a roller coaster. It comes with the ups, and when the ups are up, it's fantastic. When the downs come, you just got to accept them when it comes with it. So then you've got the mindset of the landlord we just talked about then. I mean, I think the mindsets of owners and landlords is very simple. I think that you just sit and ride it out, and you've got to be a little bit emotionless with it. I mean, I know my house that I live in has gone down in value, but it is what it is. You know, next door's gone down, so if I bought next door, it'd be cheap as well. So you've got the buyer's mindset. How would you say the buyer's mindset is?
I think the buyer's mindset has changed quite a bit, and it is changing month on month at the moment. So I think at the start of the year, like we've reported, activity was high. So there's a lot of people in the mindset that they wanted to enter the market, they wanted to get on the property ladder. Then the lockdown came. There's a bit of, there's obviously a pause because none of us could leave the house or do viewings or what have you. Then after the lockdown, I think the immediate response was everyone wanted a COVID deal. Yeah. That they wanted to... hot deal. A special price, But now I think it's changing again because people are in the mindset of buying, are out there in the market, and people are being outbid on properties. People are seeing properties that maybe 3 months ago sold at 1.05, now selling for 1.1. So it's only maybe a marginal increase, but...
It's an increase.
It's what we
need.
Yeah. But so now people are thinking, well, if we're going to buy, we can't hang around here because...
Yeah, but I think the crazy thing about it is, if you speak to a buyer, I think they think that we're pressure selling them. They go, wow, that you just lost out on that one. And I read somewhere today, a client of another company have lost out on 4 properties over the weekend that they wanted to buy and offered and wanted to buy and lost out on. I mean, we're no different, but this is other companies happening on. So buyers think that you're pressuring them into a deal, and when you say the market's booming and there's loads of buyers, people go, that's not correct. I know that everyone's lost their jobs, but I can't spin the logic on it myself. But they are so many people buying. So if you look at live examples I've got here, I mean, I'm looking at the first one here. This is probably the biggest jump that I've seen for live examples. Again, these are properties that Allsopp and Allsopp have sold, and then the same type, same style, same location we've sold. So,
by the way, before we get into it,
yes,
who's give us these? We're sat with our laptops in front of us. We're a tech company, and been given pieces of paper.
Yeah, I know. We're not saving the world, are we? There should have been email, but we'll go with it. So, 2.35 million is what we sold a Dubai Hills. To say what style it is, just a 5-bedroom villa, and that exact same style we sold for 2.7 last month. That is massive. Now, for me, I'm not saying that is a price increase off the average price. That is a COVID deal that someone's definitely got. But, if you've bought that is a massive increase. And then again, Sidra, 3-bedroom, we're letting at 140 in Q2 2020. We're now renting at 150 to 155. That is just incredible. Yep. Now, for anyone listening to this really and trying to understand the logic behind it, I think the logic that you have to spin on it is that the cheapest properties from 6 months ago, you fast forward 6 months, the cheapest ones are now the most expensive ones from 6 months ago, and owners hit that threshold, that bottom threshold where they say, I'm not selling for that price. And when you reach that, which generally is around the time that their mortgage limit is, so their limit versus their, and when you get to that level, that's the bottom. And I think we reached that about 4 months ago.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you, and especially with what we're seeing now in the market. It's always a difficult one, isn't it? Because we're really putting our neck out to say we think we've reached the bottom of the market, because we could quite easily end up with egg on our faces in 3 months' time.
Yeah.
But looking at all the data, and especially maybe again, like we said last week, maybe we have to stop thinking of the Dubai market as a whole.
Correct.
But it's definitely in certain areas.
Yeah.
I think we have reached the bottom, and we are on a slight uptick at the moment.
I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would educate any buyer or seller on at the moment. Is like you said, you look at any segment in the world. If you take London as an example, London is probably the number 1 property destination in the world. It's where the benchmark for quality and pricing, and everyone would like to be at London's benchmark. And when you go and look at the property markets there, they take SW1 as an area, and you may see SW1 increase 5-10% in a year in a boom, but then you might see somewhere on the outskirts, not at all. Don't forget, London is not like a 3 million city. I think the population of London is it 8 million?
I think so, yeah.
So you're talking nearly triple the size, or double and a bit.
Probably maybe the size of the UAE population-wise.
So then London, if you take that as an example, you've got your SW1s, but people don't talk about the outskirts. What I mean by that is when you start going for Slough. I think Slough's in London, isn't it? I've never been there, but that's where The Office was filmed. And you go there, that is officially London. And that, for me, I'm not going to say what area like class Slough as in Dubai, but the further you go out towards Jebel Ali and you start talking about whether it's Dubai South or the Jebel Ali village, a place like that, that's no longer SW1. You then are in the outskirts. So you can't say Dubai prices have dropped, but then class Jebel Ali as part of the Palm Jumeirah. They're very separate. So I think my advice to any buyer is to not read the Dubai market as dropped, but is to read what is going on in your area, because that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, and also speak to your agent, because we've got tools now to be able to show people what's going on. So it's not just a case of people, like we're saying to people, go and look what's going on and they don't know where to start. Go and talk to your agent, because we've got all the data from the land department. We've got our own recent sales transactions, or if we're not pitching ourselves, I'm sure other agents have as well, to show what is actually happening, what's the concrete data in the market, and that's how you'll be able to see the pattern and what is going on.
I think that's, if you go on Rightmove in the UK, you can actually see what postcode, what year it's sold, how much it's sold for. And I think Dubai is becoming more that way. Like I say, if you're speaking to a well-versed estate agency, they should be able to say, hey, Springs 4E, let's have a look at transactional data. I mean, that's what I'll be asking about as a buyer. Show me what's sold in the area, what prices for, and what were they. Because then you'll be able to make an offer based on what's going on in the market.
Exactly, spot on. Rather than trying to have a look through the portals where the price range can be 30% different for the same property online. So trying to look at that and then talking to friends and seeing what friends have got to say.
But there's no way until recently to know if that was cheap or not. Like I said in the last podcast, I've been trying to buy this property, and even because it's an international area, there's no transactional volume or data to be able to work out if it's cheap or not. So, and that's what I can imagine a lot of international buyers are doing. Unless they're speaking to the right agent, you're just like, wow, that looks nice. Is it market? I'm just going to buy it because it's nice. And I think that's probably what a lot of buyers are facing. But if you're a local buyer who speaks to an agent, you have the ability, and that works the same if you're a seller. Sellers at the moment should be speaking to their agent and saying, show me what's sold.
Some data,
And more importantly, if you're an agent speaking to a seller, you should be saying to the seller, I'm not listing your property because you're overpriced based on market value. There's a lot of information out to help people make the choices that need to make.
Yeah, I'd agree wholeheartedly. And like you say, I think Dubai is on the journey to more and more transparency, more and more data available. The ideal, like you say, is, well, maybe it's the ideal because it's our experience. Maybe there's something better out there we don't know. But from Rightmove in the UK, you can see the same house, its whole transaction history.
Yeah.
And then you can see the next door neighbours and the house on the next street that's the same size to compare it to. So we are on that journey in Dubai, and the sooner we get there, the better, really.
Yeah, definitely.
More informed decisions all around.
There's no doubt about it. The more data you get, the more information you can get. Okay, so on to the next subject. We want to talk about the oversupply and the supply. We delved into that a little bit on the podcast, but we're going to delve a little bit deeper into that so people get an understanding. People talk about oversupply. We've said there's no oversupply. Give me an example of somewhere from your point of view, an area that we've got where we're struggling at the moment to find a buyer a home. Is there any examples you could give?
Yeah, quite a lot. Jumeirah Golf Estates, the Palm, Dubai Hills Estate, the Springs, the Meadows.
Dubai.
Yeah, Dubai. Basically, all of the major areas that would be the first areas that come to your head. Downtown is another one. I was talking to the downtown team earlier today. Pretty much everywhere. All what you would class as the main most recognisable areas of Dubai.
Yeah.
There's not a huge amount of stock out there.
Why is that though? Because if you are a homeowner or you are a buyer looking from the outside in, my question that I would ask is, Paul, you're talking rubbish because there's 50,000 houses being built, 20 hypothetically. I see loads of construction. What are you talking about? I see downtown is there. So how do you answer that to a buyer?
Well, look at where the houses are being built, which is on the outskirts.
Yeah,
you said
Slough.
before. Slough.
Go to Slough if you want a house.
Well, if you only need to look at places like Jumeirah Golf Estates, the Springs, the Meadows, they're not building there anymore. There's no space. The land's all used up. So it's these kind of areas that are very good locations, very good quality, great either family communities or places like the Marina, great for young professionals. They're not building.
There's no space in marinas, you know what I mean? But even Marina, like, there's not actually much space to build.
Not a lot.
Till the next G+50 comes in, guys. No more to build.
So this is what's creating the undersupply. It's these kind of areas that we're seeing. And Dubai South, I'm absolutely confident, is going to be a fantastic area in Dubai, especially when the legacy from the Expo site up in the region, it turns into a business park, etc., etc.
Well, you can rent a 3-bed there now for 48,000 dirhams.
I know.
Again, going back to the further out you go, the more money you get. There, it's not an area we currently do because we stick to the core components of what we know. But from my point of view, like you said, the further you go out, the more money you're going to get for your value. But you can't compare the two properties.
No, exactly.
So we're saying if you are a seller at the moment, you are to stick with your price and you're to demand what you think it's worth. Is that fair, or would you? How would you deal with this if you're a seller at the moment, knowing that you're listening to us saying there's no properties in the market?
Again, you need to talk to your agent and you need to see the data, because it's all very well saying there's no properties and there's lots of demand, etc., etc., but that doesn't translate into just put it on the market for whatever you think, because there's loads of people out there.
Yeah.
You still need to be reasonable. The price increments we're talking about are 25, 50,000, maybe on occasion 75,000 dirhams. So it's not like we're saying, there's 200, 300, 500,000 going onto the prices overnight. It's not the case at all. But if you are in the market at the moment, and especially, we can even break this down more, because properties that are in the market with a tenant are still a bit harder to sell, because most of the buyers are end users. They want somewhere they're able to move into.
Yeah.
So, but if you've got a property that's vacant or becoming vacant in the next 2 or 3 months or so, then you are in a more bullish position than you have been in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Still doesn't mean you can go crazy, but have a look at the data and you are within your rights more to stick to the price you're looking for, as long as you're sensible to begin with what that price is.
I think a big thing for me out of all of it is, these people that are buying, one of the big questions that buyers are asking as well is these people are losing their jobs. So how is it, again, I know the answer to this myself, which I'm going to answer my own question, is that I was listening to a podcast today and it was talking about, what's happening in the world. And it was like these people are losing their jobs, and pilots have lost their jobs, and hostesses have lost their jobs. And that's the reason that the whole world is going to collapse, etc. And what I found very interesting off the back of this, and these people are obviously clients of ours because they have to rent somewhere, is a pilot or hostess, for instance. I think we've hired 3 hostesses,
they've started really well,
and they've done really well because they've come with people skills and everything else. And I know that in London, someone was working at Ernst Young, they're now a Deliveroo driver, but they just need a job. And I think that as people move through what's going on in the economic state, they're going to need a job. They're going to take pay no matter what, and at some point they need to rent a house. That house is something you've got for rent. That landlord gets his money. So even people are losing their jobs, as long as people are moving into different industries, which is happening, then the whole economic state of property just carries on ticking. It's such an interesting dynamic to watch. Yeah,
there's always money moving around. In one form or another. In some cases, it's unfortunate because people are having to downsize.
Yeah.
But they're still, like you said, they're still putting rent into a certain landlord's bank account, and there's still people who are, if we're being honest, doing very well at the moment. So then there's people who are doing very well and looking for opportunities to get into the market. So as long as there's money moving around, which there is, the transaction levels will remain in place. Like you say, people always need somewhere to live.
So final question that I'm going to ask you before we wrap up here. You are a investor. Forget the end users, because the end users are making decisions based on their emotions. Would you invest your money here as a buy-to-let landlord to generate yourself more rental income? Would you go to London? Would you go to New York? Where would you go today?
Dubai.
Seriously?
Yeah, and I'm not, obviously, anyone that's watching is going to think it's an obvious answer because I live and work here and obviously running a real estate agency here. But you just need to look at the price per square foot in Dubai compared to London and New York or any other major cities and see the opportunities that are out there at the moment. There was headlines this morning about DIFC investing in more AI technology, and Dubai is so forward thinking in what it's looking to do, and it's so mobile in terms of, if Dubai is going in one direction, it wants to change direction.
Bang.
It can do so very, very easily. So I think Dubai's got the right vision for the next, let's say, 10 years ahead. And then I'm sure from 10 years there'll be more plans and more plans. But I think Dubai's going in the right place. So with the low price per square foot compared to the other major cities, and what Dubai's looking to do, I do think it makes it not a no-brainer, but a very, very attractive.
Close to a no-brainer, though. Because again, you talk about the rental. I'm talking about the Redwood property that there's no tax.
Yeah.
The money you receive, you pay your service charges, and that's it.
Yeah.
Where if you've got a property in London, you pay 20% on top of receiving your rent and paying your mortgage. Whatever you claim is yours, and there's not many places in the world that can do that now.
And the other thing with how we talk about like price declines for 6 years, and quite a lot over the 6 years, we've talked about the biggest factor is it's like a controlled decline with the doubling of the transfer fee and the mortgage cap, the amount people need for a deposit. And we've seen that the deposit amount's been reduced by 5% by the central bank, and that's acted as a huge stimulus. And we've seen all the transactions that are happening. So in terms of capital appreciation, you've got to think we are on 6 years of a price decline. With everything that's going on in Dubai, with all the plans, the visions that they have, you've got to think there's a lot of capital appreciation over not the next couple of years. No one should buy now and think they're going to make a lot of money in 2 years.
Yeah.
But in 5, 10, 15 years, there should be a lot of capital appreciation.
So we look forward to registering you on our CRM this week as an investor, potential investor.
Or someone pulling us up in 10 years' time.
So remember you told me to invest. It's worth nothing now. Thank you very much for listening. We hope this information comes in handy. We're here to talk today, as you've heard, about the price declines, increases, potential undersupply, and anything related to the Dubai property market. If you want to gain more information about the Dubai property market, visit Allsopp and allsopp.com. Go on our social channels, follow Paul Kelly or myself, and you will get a good insight into the Dubai property market. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.